Most people think heart attacks announce themselves. Chest pain, left arm going numb, a dramatic collapse. That is what the movies show. That is what most people expect. But after 60, the most dangerous cardiac events are the quiet ones, the ones that build slowly while you sleep. No warning. No time to call for help. No second chance. And here is what shocks most patients when I tell them this in the recovery room. Those events are almost always triggered by something ordinary, something completely unremarkable, something you did before turning off the light. I am a cardiac surgeon. I have spent over 20 years opening chests, repairing arteries, holding hearts in my hands. I have also spent 20 years watching the same preventable patterns repeat themselves over and over in patients who had no idea what they were doing to themselves every single night. Tonight, I'm going to show you 5 of those patterns. 5 habits that are quietly loading the gun while you sleep. And then I will show you exactly how to unload it, one simple evening at a time. Stay with me. What you learn in the next few minutes may be the most important thing you hear this year. Before we begin, I need to know, how long have you been experiencing cardiovascular symptoms? Shortness of breath, chest tightness, fatigue after light activity. Drop the number of years in the comments. I read every single one, because your experiences are what drive these videos. Here's something most people do not know. Your cardiovascular system does not take a break when you fall asleep. It shifts gears. In a healthy body, nighttime is when your blood pressure naturally dips, usually 10 to 20% lower than during the day. Your heart rate slows. Your arteries relax. It is a biological reset, a form of maintenance the body has been running for your entire life. But after 60, that system becomes less reliable. The blood vessels stiffen. The pressure regulation gets less precise. Certain hormonal signals that used to protect the heart at night start to weaken, and the margin for error gets much, much smaller. Think of it this way. During the day, your cardiovascular system has backup mechanisms. It can compensate. It can adapt. At night, many of those mechanisms are offline. The body is running on a skeleton crew. Think of your heart like a hospital at 3 in the morning. During the day, the hospital is fully staffed. Doctors, nurses, specialists, everywhere. If something goes wrong, help is immediate. But at 3 a.m., only a skeleton crew. 1 nurse per floor, 1 doctor on call. If a crisis hits, the response is slower. The backup is limited. Your cardiovascular system at night is that skeleton crew hospital, and after 60, the crew gets even smaller. That is what makes the night different after 60. That is why the hours between midnight and 6 in the morning carry the highest risk of heart attack and stroke for people over 60. Not the afternoon, not the morning rush, the quiet hours. The hours when no one is watching. But your habits are. Now, here's the part that changes everything. What happens during those dangerous hours is largely determined by what you did before bed. The meal you ate, the pill you took or did not take, the temperature in your room. Decisions that felt completely routine. That is what we are going to talk about, starting right now with the one that surprises patients the most. Let me ask you something. What time did you eat dinner last night? And what was on the plate? I ask every patient that question, and for a surprising number of people over 60, the answer is somewhere around 8 or 9 at night, sometimes 10 at night. A full meal, pasta, rice, meat, maybe something fried, followed by the couch, then bed within an hour or 2. I understand why it happens. Busy days, family schedules, the habit of a lifetime. But from a cardiac standpoint, this habit is quietly harming your heart. A heavy meal late at night is one of the most underestimated stresses your heart faces. Here is what is happening inside your body. When you eat a large meal, your digestive system demands an enormous increase in blood flow. Blood that normally circulates through your entire body gets redirected. Your stomach, your intestines, your liver, they are screaming for resources. Think of it like a city where all the emergency vehicles suddenly rush to one neighborhood. The rest of the city? Left vulnerable. Your heart has to pump harder, much harder. Blood pressure rises, sometimes 10, 15, even 20 points higher than your baseline. Triglycerides, the fats in your blood, spike sharply. Within 2 to 4 hours after eating, your blood becomes thicker, more viscous, harder to push through already narrowed arteries. Now, layer that on top of going to sleep. Your body expects the evening to be a wind down, not an all-hands cardiovascular emergency. Instead, your heart is working overtime to digest a full dinner, while simultaneously trying to shift into its nighttime recovery mode. Those two demands are in direct conflict, and in a person over 60 with any degree of arterial stiffness, that conflict has real consequences. Let me tell you about Thomas. He is 68, a retired postal worker who loved cooking big dinners. Every evening he would prepare elaborate meals: roasted chicken with potatoes, pasta with homemade sauce, grilled steak with vegetables. Real food, healthy ingredients, nothing processed, nothing fried. He was proud of his cooking, and he ate well, very well. But timing? Timing was not on his radar. Picture him in my consultation room, 6 months after a minor heart event, a warning shot, we call it. Elevated troponin levels, chest tightness that sent him to the emergency room at 2 in the morning. He sits across from me, hands folded, still shaken. He says, "I do not understand. I eat healthy food, vegetables, lean meat, fish twice a week. I follow all the guidelines. Why did this happen to me?" I asked him one question. "What time do you eat?" He pauses, looks at his wife. She nods. He says, "Around 9, sometimes 9:30, after the news. I have been doing that for 40 years, since I retired. Dinner was always our evening ritual. Cook together, eat together, relax, then bed." Here is what I told him. The food is not the problem. The timing is. His body was staging a cardiovascular crisis every single night, just to process dinner, while trying to rest. Let me explain what was happening inside Thomas every night. At 9:30, he would sit down to a full meal. By 10, he was on the couch. By 10:45, he was in bed. His digestive system was just getting started. Blood flow to his stomach and intestines was peaking. His heart rate was elevated. His blood pressure was climbing. And then he asked his body to sleep, to enter rest mode, while his cardiovascular system was in crisis mode. The conflict created inflammation, elevated his nighttime blood pressure, and over time, damaged the delicate lining of his arteries, every single night, for 40 years. Studies have consistently shown that eating within 2 to 3 hours of sleep is associated with elevated nighttime blood pressure, higher rates of acid reflux that can mimic and trigger cardiac symptoms, and increased risk of cardiovascular events during sleep. The European Heart Journal published research tracking over 4,000 adults over 60. Those who ate their main meal after 8 in the evening had a 43% higher risk of nighttime cardiac events compared to those who finished dinner by 6 or 7. 43%. From timing alone. Not food quality, not portion size, timing. Thomas changed one thing. Dinner by 6:30. Nothing else. No new medications, no drastic diet, just timing. Week 1 was tough. He messaged me on day 4. He said, "This feels wrong. I am hungry by 9. My wife and I feel like we are eating dinner in the middle of the afternoon." I told him, "Push through. Your body has been running on this schedule for decades. It will take time to adjust. Give it 2 weeks." Week 2, he called. He said, "I slept through the night for the first time in months. No chest tightness, no waking up at 2 with pressure. I just slept." Week 3. His energy during the day improved. No more afternoon crashes, no more bloating after dinner. 3 months later, his nighttime blood pressure readings dropped by an average of 12 millimeters of mercury. 12. His cardiologist could not believe the change. Asked what medications I had added. I said, "None." He moved dinner. That is it. His cardiologist was stunned, but I was not, because I have seen it dozens of times. The fix is not complicated. Finish your main meal by 6 or 7 in the evening. Keep late meals light, protein and vegetables, not heavy fats, not large portions. Your heart will thank you. Every single night. Now I need you to understand something. The danger is not just what you eat, it is what you forget to take. This next habit is where the most preventable damage happens. If you are over 60 and you take medication for high blood pressure, statistically more than 60% of people in that age group do. The timing of that medication matters enormously, more than most doctors take time to explain. For most people, blood pressure follows a predictable curve through the day. It rises in the morning, peaks in the afternoon, dips at night. This is normal, healthy, expected. But a significant portion of people over 60, particularly those with hypertension, do not get that nighttime dip. Their pressure stays elevated, or it actually surges during the early morning hours. This condition is called nocturnal hypertension, and most people have never heard of it. And it is dangerous in ways that daytime high blood pressure is not. While you sleep, the arterial walls are not braced for impact. Think of it this way. During the day, when you are active, your blood vessels are prepared. They are alert, reactive, ready to handle pressure changes. But at night, they relax. They expect calm. A pressure surge at 3 in the morning hits the arterial walls like a car crash you did not see coming. No time to brace, no time to compensate. It is more likely to rupture a vulnerable plaque inside a coronary artery, more likely to trigger clot formation, more likely to send someone to the operating table. If you take your blood pressure medication only in the morning, it may wear off by the time you need it most. Most blood pressure medications have a half-life of 12 to 18 hours. If you take it at 7 a.m., by 7 p.m. it is starting to fade. By midnight, it is barely working. By 3 a.m., your arteries are unprotected, completely. If you forget it entirely, you may be leaving yourself completely unprotected during the most vulnerable hours of the night. Let me tell you about Dorothy. She is 71, a woman who never missed her morning medications. Never. She had systems, a pill organizer with 7 compartments, one for each day, an alarm on her phone, 7 a.m. sharp, every morning. Perfect compliance. Her doctors loved her. She was the model patient. But she took everything at 7 in the morning, including her blood pressure medication. One night in November, she woke up at 2:30, crushing chest pain, like an elephant sitting on her chest, radiating to her jaw. Her left arm felt heavy, numb. Her husband woke up, saw her face, called emergency services immediately. By the time the ambulance arrived, her blood pressure was 190/110 at 2:30 in the morning, dangerously high. The paramedics gave her nitroglycerin, aspirin, rushed her to the hospital. In the emergency room, the attending physician stabilized her, ran tests, elevated troponin, EKG changes. She was having a heart event. Not a full heart attack, but close, very close. The attending physician asked her a critical question. "When do you take your medication?" She said, "Every morning, 7 sharp." He looked at her chart, then he looked at the clock. 2:45 a.m. He called me. I was consulting on her case. He said, "Her last dose was 19 hours ago." I looked at her blood pressure readings, 190/110 at 2:30 a.m. I said what I always say. The medication wore off 12 hours ago. Her arteries have been unprotected all night. Dorothy survived, but it was close and completely preventable. What should you do? Talk to your doctor, specifically about timing. Ask whether your medication should be taken at night rather than in the morning. The conversation takes 2 minutes. It could save your life. There is strong evidence, including the Hygieia chronotherapy trial, that evening dosing of blood pressure medication significantly reduces cardiovascular risk during sleep. The trial followed over 19,000 patients. Those who took their medication at bedtime had a 45% lower risk of major cardiovascular events compared to those who took it in the morning. 45% from timing alone. That is not a minor adjustment. That is a potentially life-saving conversation to have. Do not assume the timing does not matter. In cardiology, timing can be the entire difference. And most patients over 60 have never once had this conversation with their doctor. Because most doctors do not bring it up. Not because they do not care, but because they have 7 minutes per patient, and medication timing is not on the standard checklist. Dorothy now takes her medication at 8 in the evening, every evening. Her nighttime blood pressure? 120/75. Consistent, stable, protected. She has not had another cardiac event. Not once. 3 years later. And she tells every friend she has. Ask your doctor about timing. It saved my life. I want you to think about someone you know who snores. A spouse, a parent, maybe yourself. That sound, that loud, irregular rumbling in the night. Most people treat it as an annoyance, something to laugh about, something to elbow your partner over. I treat it as a cardiac warning sign, until proven otherwise. After 20 years in this field, I mean that literally. Sleep apnea is one of the most underdiagnosed and underestimated conditions I encounter in patients over 60. It is estimated that over 30% of older adults have some form of it, and the vast majority have never been diagnosed or treated. They have absolutely no idea what it is doing to their heart every single night. Here is what actually happens during an apnea episode. You stop breathing. Completely. For 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 40 seconds, sometimes longer. Your airway collapses, or your tongue falls back, or your throat muscles relax too much. Whatever the cause, air stops moving. Oxygen stops entering your lungs. It might happen dozens of times per hour. Some patients, 60 times, 80 times, every single hour. Each time the oxygen level in your blood drops sharply, from 98% down to 85, 80, 75. In severe cases, even lower. Your brain registers a crisis. Oxygen deprivation is a survival threat, and your brain fires off a stress response. Adrenaline, cortisol, fight or flight hormones, flooding your system. A sudden spike in heart rate, a sudden spike in blood pressure. Your heart jolts awake, essentially pounding, racing, while the rest of you is still asleep. You gasp, you choke, you resume breathing. Oxygen returns, and you drift back to sleep, never fully waking, never remembering. Night after night, year after year. Now imagine that happening 30, 40, 50 times in a single night. What that does to the cardiovascular system is not subtle. Sleep apnea is directly associated with a 3 times higher risk of heart attack. 3 times. That number alone should stop you cold. It is strongly linked to irregular heart rhythms, including atrial fibrillation, which itself dramatically raises stroke risk. It accelerates the thickening and stiffening of arterial walls, and because the person is asleep for all of it, they often have no idea until something serious happens. Let me tell you about Frank. He is 69, a man whose wife complained about his snoring for 15 years. 15 years. Every night, the same thing. Loud snoring, gasping, choking sounds. His wife would lie awake, listening, counting the seconds between breaths. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Then a loud gasp. Then snoring again. She told him, over and over, "You need to see a doctor. This is not normal." Frank laughed it off. He said, "It is just snoring. My dad snored. His dad snored. It is genetics, part of getting older, nothing to worry about." His wife gave up, bought earplugs, moved to the guest room, and Frank kept snoring. Until one morning in March, he woke up at 6:15, tried to get out of bed, and his left arm would not move, completely numb, heavy, like it did not belong to him. He tried to lift it. Nothing. He tried to speak, tell his wife, but the words came out slurred, garbled. His wife heard him, rushed in, saw his face, one side drooping. She called emergency services. Stroke. A blood clot had traveled from his heart to his brain. During sleep, blocked an artery. cut off oxygen to part of his brain. The paramedics got him to the hospital fast, within the golden hour. They gave him clot-busting medication, saved most of the function in his arm, but not all. His hand? Still weak, still clumsy. 3 years later. In the hospital, the neurologist ordered a sleep study, standard protocol for stroke patients. The results came back. Severe obstructive sleep apnea. Frank stopped breathing an average of 48 times per hour. 48 times, every single hour. For years, probably decades. His oxygen levels were dropping so low during sleep that his brain was in a state of chronic stress. His blood pressure was spiking dozens of times per night, creating the perfect conditions for a clot to form. And travel. The neurologist showed Frank the data. Frank stared at the report. He said, "I had no idea. I just thought I snored." The neurologist said, "That snoring almost killed you." Frank now uses a CPAP device every night, continuous positive airway pressure. It looks like a mask, covers his nose, or his nose and mouth, depending on the model. A machine pumps air into his airway, keeps it open, prevents collapse, prevents the oxygen drops. His snoring stopped, completely. His wife moved back into the bedroom. His blood pressure stabilized. His stroke risk dropped by more than 60%. 60%. From one device, one habit. The warning signs are not always obvious. Yes, loud snoring is one, but there are others. Watch for waking up with headaches. Morning headaches are a classic sign. Feeling exhausted, even after a full night of sleep. If you sleep 8 hours, but wake up feeling like you did not sleep at all, that is a red flag. Needing to urinate frequently during the night. 2, 3, 4 times per night? Your body is responding to the stress hormones from apnea episodes. Waking up with a dry mouth, or a feeling of choking. If any of those sound familiar, talk to your doctor about a sleep study. Here is what I tell patients directly. If you snore heavily, you are over 60, and you have any history of heart disease or stroke, getting evaluated for sleep apnea is not optional. It is part of your cardiac care, full stop. The treatment, most commonly a CPAP device, is not glamorous. I know that. It takes time to get used to. Week 1 is uncomfortable. The mask feels weird. The air pressure feels strange. Some people feel claustrophobic. But week 2? Most people start sleeping better. Week 3? They notice energy during the day. Week 4? They cannot imagine sleeping without it. The data on what it does for heart health is remarkable. Patients who comply with CPAP therapy show measurable reductions in blood pressure, lower rates of atrial fibrillation, and significantly reduced cardiac risk. One device, one habit, enormous protection. Does anyone in your household snore? Have you ever been told you stop breathing in your sleep? Think carefully before you move on from this one. Now, here is where it gets interesting, because the next habit is driven by something completely logical. And that is exactly what makes it so easy to overlook. Many people over 60 deliberately limit how much they drink in the evening. The reason makes perfect sense. They want to avoid waking up at 2 in the morning to use the bathroom. Disrupted sleep is uncomfortable. Getting up at night increases fall risk, especially in the dark, especially with balance issues. So they cut fluids after dinner, sometimes after 4 in the afternoon. No water, no tea, nothing. I understand the reasoning completely. But from a cardiovascular standpoint, going to bed even mildly dehydrated is a meaningful risk factor, and one that almost nobody talks about. When you are dehydrated, your blood becomes more viscous, thicker. It does not flow as freely through your vessels. Think of it like trying to pour honey versus water. Water flows easily. Honey? Slow, sticky, requires more pressure to move. For a young cardiovascular system, that is a manageable inconvenience. The heart is strong. The vessels are flexible. The body compensates. For a person over 60 dealing with arterial stiffness and plaque, it is a very different story. Thick blood moves slowly through already narrowed arteries. It is more prone to forming clots, more likely to stick to rough patches on arterial walls, more likely to trigger a blockage. And here is the timing problem most people do not consider. During sleep, your heart rate naturally slows, from 70 beats per minute down to 50, 45, sometimes even lower. Blood moves more slowly through the system anyway. Now, combine slow circulation with thicker blood. In a body that has been lying still for 7 or 8 hours, in arteries that may already be narrowed, by plaque, by calcium, by years of wear. That combination, dehydration, slow heart rate, reduced movement, and vessel disease, is one of the reasons strokes and heart attacks cluster in the early morning hours, between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. When your blood is at its thickest, your heart rate is at its slowest, and your body has been still the longest. Let me tell you about Ruth. She is 74, a woman who prided herself on never waking up at night. Not once. She would tell her friends, "I sleep through the night, every night. No bathroom trips, no interruptions, 8 hours straight." She thought it was a badge of honor, a sign of good health. Her secret? She would stop drinking water at 4 in the afternoon, every day, like clockwork. No water with dinner, no water before bed, nothing. She thought she was being smart, protecting her sleep, avoiding the inconvenience of nighttime bathroom trips. One morning in January, she woke up at 5:15, the worst headache of her life, blinding, crushing, like her skull was being squeezed in a vice. She tried to sit up. Her right arm would not move. Her right leg felt heavy, wrong. She tried to call for her husband. The words would not come. Garbled sounds. Her husband woke up, saw her face, saw her arm hanging limp, called emergency services. Ischemic stroke. A blood clot had blocked an artery in her brain, cut off oxygen, killed brain cells. The ambulance rushed her to the hospital. The emergency room physician stabilized her, ran tests, gave her clot-busting medication. But some damage was already done. Permanent. Later, when she was stable, the emergency room physician asked her about her hydration habits. Ruth told him, "No water after 4, every day, for years." He looked at her lab results. Then he said something she will never forget. "Your blood was so thick we could barely get the IV in. Your hematocrit was 49%. That is dangerously high. Normal is 35 to 45. You were severely dehydrated. Your blood was like sludge." Ruth survived, but she lost partial function in her right hand. Permanent. She can grip, but fine motor control, buttoning a shirt, writing her name, holding a pen, gone. From dehydration. The Journal of the American Heart Association published a study following over 15,000 adults over 65. Those who were chronically dehydrated had a 41% higher risk of heart failure. 41%. The fix here is genuinely simple. Drink a full glass of water before bed. Not a large amount, just 8 ounces. That is all it takes. Enough to ensure your blood is not thickening unnecessarily while you sleep. Keep another glass on your nightstand for when you wake up. That moment of mild thirst at 2 in the morning, your body is asking for something. Your heart also needs. You do not have to choose between sleep and cardiovascular protection. Ruth now drinks 8 ounces of water at 9 in the evening, every evening. She still wakes up once during the night, around 3, uses the bathroom, goes back to sleep. But she accepts it, because she understands what is at stake. Her blood viscosity is now normal, 38% hematocrit, healthy. Her stroke risk has dropped significantly. Her neurologist is pleased. 1 glass of water, 8 ounces. Life-changing. Before we continue to the final habit, if you are finding this information valuable, save this video right now. Trust me, you will want to come back to this and share it with someone you love, because what we are covering tonight could save their life. Here is one that surprises almost every patient I mention it to, because it sounds almost too simple to matter. What temperature is your bedroom at night? Most people have never once thought about it in terms of heart health. They think about comfort. They think about personal preference. Hot sleeper? Cold sleeper? But there is a specific range that your cardiovascular system prefers, and outside of that range, your heart is quietly working harder than it should be. Let us start with too warm. When your bedroom is above about 22 degrees Celsius, roughly 72 Fahrenheit, your body works to dissipate heat throughout the night. Your blood vessels dilate to bring blood closer to the skin surface, to cool you down. Your heart rate stays elevated to pump that extra blood. Sweating increases, fluid loss, which brings us right back to the dehydration problem we just discussed. And critically, your sleep quality drops. You spend less time in the deep restorative stages, stage 3 sleep, stage 4 sleep, where the heart gets its best overnight recovery, where blood pressure dips the most, where the cardiovascular system truly rests. Instead, you toss and turn, kick off the blankets, wake up sweaty, never fully resting. Now, the opposite. A bedroom that is genuinely cold, below 16 or 17 degrees Celsius, below 62 Fahrenheit, creates a different kind of cardiovascular stress. Cold causes vasoconstriction. Your blood vessels tighten, narrow, to preserve core body heat. Blood pressure rises. The heart has to push against more resistance, harder. For someone with existing coronary artery disease or hypertension, that nighttime pressure increase is not trivial. It adds up, hour after hour, night after night. Let me tell you about Edward. He is 66, a man who liked his bedroom cold, very cold. He grew up in a cold climate, learned to sleep under heavy blankets, in freezing rooms. He thought it was healthy, thought it helped him sleep better. So he kept his bedroom at 15 degrees Celsius, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, even in winter. Windows cracked open, no heat, thick comforter. And it worked. He slept soundly, never woke up, never tossed and turned. But his body was paying a price he did not know about. One winter night in February, he woke up at 4 in the morning, chest pain, pressure, like a weight pressing down, radiating to his jaw, his left shoulder. His wife woke up, saw him clutching his chest, drove him to the emergency room, 20 minutes away. Heart attack. Mild, but real. Elevated troponin, EKG changes. They gave him aspirin, nitroglycerin, clot-busting medication, stabilized him. The cardiologist reviewed his case, asked about his sleep environment. Edward told him, 60 degrees, every night, windows open, even in winter. The cardiologist looked at his nighttime blood pressure data from the hospital monitors. Edward's pressure was spiking every night, climbing 20, 30 points during sleep. The cardiologist said, "Your body has been fighting cold stress every single night. Your blood vessels constrict to preserve heat. Your blood pressure spikes to force blood through those narrowed vessels. Your heart works harder for hours every night. That adds up, year after year. Eventually, something gives." Edward raised his bedroom temperature to 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit, within the optimal range, closed the windows, turned on the heat, used a lighter blanket. His nighttime blood pressure readings dropped significantly. His sleep quality actually improved, even though he thought the cold was helping. He felt more rested, more energized during the day. His cardiologist was pleased. One thermostat adjustment, significant cardiac benefit. The optimal range for sleep and cardiovascular protection is between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius, 65 to 72 Fahrenheit. That window keeps your body in thermoneutral territory. Vessels relaxed, heart rate low and steady. Sleep stays deep. One setting, real protection. The Sleep Foundation published research showing that people who sleep in temperatures outside this range have measurably higher nighttime blood pressure and poorer cardiovascular outcomes over time. Check your thermostat tonight. Make one small adjustment. Your heart will notice, even if you do not. Everything I have described so far might sound like a long list of things to worry about. I want to reframe that completely, because when you look at all 5 habits together, what you actually have is a blueprint, a simple, practical evening routine that addresses every single one. I call it the heart-safe evening routine, and it fits into a normal life without any dramatic changes. Here is how it looks. Between 6 and 7 in the evening, That is your window for the main meal. Lean protein, chicken, fish, turkey, vegetables, cooked or raw. A moderate portion of carbohydrates if you need them. Rice, potatoes, whole grains. Not a feast, not a fast. Just a proper dinner at a civilized hour. Giving your heart a full 3 to 4 hours to settle before sleep. At 7, water and medications. If your doctor has not specifically discussed the timing of your blood pressure medication with you, this is your reminder to have that conversation. Evening dosing may be significantly more protective. Take that question seriously. Bring this video to your next appointment. Show your doctor the research. Ask the question. 8 ounces of water, right here. Between 8 and 9, your wind down window. A gentle walk, around the block. 10 minutes. Some reading. A real book, not a screen. A calm conversation with your spouse, your family. This is the time to step away from screens, particularly bright phone screens, which suppress melatonin, and keep the nervous system alert far longer than it should be before sleep. By 9, check your bedroom. Adjust the thermostat. 18 to 22 Celsius, 65 to 72 Fahrenheit. Open a window briefly if the air feels stale. Set a glass of water on the nightstand. These take 90 seconds. They matter. By 10, you are in bed. And here's one final detail that costs you absolutely nothing. If you snore, or if you have been told you stop breathing during sleep, try sleeping on your side rather than your back. Back sleeping worsens airway obstruction dramatically. Your tongue falls back. Your throat collapses. A simple positional change can reduce apnea episodes significantly. While you work toward a formal evaluation, some people use a tennis ball, sew it into the back of their pajamas. Makes back sleeping uncomfortable, forces side sleeping. Simple, effective. Dinner by 7. Water and pills at 7. Calm evening until 9. Room prepared by 9. Bed by 10. On your side. The question is never whether this routine works. The data is clear that it does. The question is whether you will actually do it. And that is a question only you can answer. Now, I want to be honest with you for a moment. Not as a content creator, as a surgeon. I have stood at an operating table at 3 in the morning, holding a heart that stopped, because of a clot that formed overnight in a narrowed artery. I have watched monitors flatline. I have called time of death. I have spoken to families in waiting rooms at dawn, families who had no idea anything was wrong. When they said goodnight a few hours earlier, they went to bed, everything seemed fine, and then 3 a.m. hit, and everything changed. I have read autopsy reports on people who were planning their grandchildren's birthdays the week before, people who had dinner reservations, travel plans, life, and in case after case, the contributing factors were not mysterious. They were a late dinner, a skipped medication, a bedroom that was too warm or too cold, a body that was quietly running out of water, an airway that had been collapsing silently for years, while everyone assumed the snoring was just snoring. These are not exotic risk factors. They are not rare. They are the background noise of millions of ordinary evenings, and that background noise, accumulated night after night, year after year, can become a cardiac event that nobody saw coming, because nobody knew to look. Here is the truth that 20 years in the operating room has given me. Most of the hearts I have had to repair did not fail because of bad luck. They failed because of bad information. Information the patients simply never had. Nobody told them that dinner timing mattered. Nobody explained that medication timing was critical. Nobody warned them that snoring could kill. Nobody connected dehydration to stroke risk. Nobody mentioned bedroom temperature and heart health. The information was not hidden. It was just never delivered. You now have it. The question is what you do with it tonight. Not next week, not after your next checkup. Tonight. Let us bring it all together. 5 habits, 5 fixes. I want you leaving with a clear action plan, not a vague sense of worry. 1. Finish your main meal by 6 or 7 in the evening. Not a radical diet, just a reasonable dinner at a reasonable hour. 2. Talk to your doctor about the timing of your blood pressure medication. Ask specifically about evening dosing. That single conversation could be the most important medical discussion you have this year. 3. If you snore, if you wake up exhausted, if anyone has ever told you that you stop breathing in your sleep, get evaluated for sleep apnea. This is not optional at 60 plus. It is part of taking your heart seriously. 4. Drink a glass of water before bed. Keep one on the nightstand. Do not let your blood thicken overnight, because you were trying to avoid a bathroom trip. 5. Set your bedroom between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius, 65 to 72 Fahrenheit. That simple number protects your vessels and costs you nothing. Now, I want to ask you something directly, and I genuinely want you to answer in the comments below. Which of these 5 habits do you recognize in yourself? I have a strong feeling at least 2 or 3 hit close to home. You are not alone in that. Most patients recognize themselves in this list. The difference is you now know what to do about it. Write your biggest takeaway in the comments. What is the one thing from this video you are going to change tonight? Your answer might inspire someone else watching this, someone who needs exactly the push you just got. If this video gave you something useful, please share it. There is someone in your life, a spouse, a sibling, a friend, someone over 60 who has never once connected their nightly habits to their heart. Send it to them. Take care of that heart. It has been working for you every single minute of every single night, for your entire life. Give it the conditions it needs to keep going. One last thing. Everything I have shared here is general medical information, based on current cardiovascular research and clinical experience. It is not a substitute for your personal medical care. Before you make any changes to your medication schedule especially, please talk to your own physician. That is not a legal disclaimer. That is genuine advice from someone who wants you healthy. Good night. Sleep well. Take care of yourself starting tonight.